So first of all, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, the impact of marketing technology on your business. My name is Pablo Monge. I'm the head of digital sales, digital marketing, and customer experience at Globant for EMEA. For those who didn't know the company, Globant is a native digital company, which is present in 18 countries with more than 6,000 employees. And it's a pleasure for me to host today this webinar and have such a great guest, which is Carlos Deltie, founder, CEO, and course instructor of Martech Alliance. And I'd like to introduce yourself, Carlos.
Thank you, Pablo. First of all, thanks for absolute pleasure to come on here. So as you mentioned, I'm the founder of the Martech Alliance. Probably just describe myself as a bit of a nerd when it comes to marketing technology, marketing ops. I focused a lot on building kind of a really great, amazing community to help bring people together, to better understand the madness of 8,000 solutions. And that can be through coming to an event, catching up, speaking and meeting people, or it can become one of our courses or resources, basically. That's us in a nutshell. I've been in this space for a while, though. I mean, the word Martech is kind of probably reaching a bit of its peak at the moment. There's many people that have been in this space for longer than the word existed, I would say. I'm sort of one of them. Prior to launching this business, I was a marketing director for a FTSE 250. And I used to run around running marketing campaigns for the world's largest banks. It was a lot of fun, really enjoyed it, but not anywhere near as much fun as running the Martech Alliance.
Thank you, Carlos. And as I said, it's a pleasure for us to have you here today. Okay, so we have a really interesting topic, a really hot topic, I would say, for marketers nowadays, which is marketing technology, Martech. And basically, let's just start with the basic. So, Carlos, for you, what is Martech? I mean, I know that it's a really wide question, but for that people that are really new in the topic, how can Martech help them as marketers, as advertisers, to increase the business results?
Sure, I think it's a good question, because I think people hear the word Martech and they think Scott Brinker's 8,000 logos. And don't get me wrong, Scott's amazing. He's a pioneer in this space, the godfather of Martech. But he would agree as well that he wouldn't want people to hear the word Martech and think 8,000 logos. It's something very different. It is where marketing and technology meet. It's their inception. Specifically, I like to think of it as where those worlds meet. What does that mean? And for me, it means four things. It means I've kind of created what I call the 4 Ps of marketing technology. And so it goes well beyond the technology. That's the first point. I like to think about it as when marketing technology meets and you get Martech, what does that mean for your planning? What does that mean for your people and teams? What does it mean for your platforms, apps, and ecosystems? And what does it mean for your process and operations? And so if you think about that, we go all the way around from the why to the who to the what and to the how. And so for me, Martech is essentially making sure that you understand the technology that's available and how you can use it to deliver your business goals. And that can be not just I need to go and buy a shiny new tool, but actually how do I use it? What people do I need? How do I make best use of it? How is it actually connected to my business goals? And then operationally, what needs to be in place to fine tune it and make sure I get the most from it?
Yeah, I think you said a really interesting thing, which is basically that Martech is connecting the business side of our clients with the tech side. So I think that in that field, the role of the traditional digital marketing director is shifting a lot. I mean, it's moving to a really tech side, and some people is really scared about that. So what would you say to that traditional marketing directors that are really close to the business but are now getting a little bit more close to the technology?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think the first thing is it's not tech over everything else. And I think the fundamentals of marketing remain true, whatever the case. And in fact, there's a fantastic article, it's many years old now. Well, I say many, it's about 3 or 4 years old now, by Doug Kessler that talks about plumbers and persuaders, which I refer to very often. It's that there are 2 parts, there are 2 sides to the coin. One is a data technology side, and think of that as your plumbers. And then you have your persuaders, which is thinking about those core, super important things that are timeless. Yeah, it's about branding, it's about messaging. Those things aren't disappearing. So this is my way of saying that if you don't understand the data and the tech side of Martech yet, that's not a problem. What you know isn't obsolete. However, you've got to embrace change. You've got to embrace the opportunities that come with technology. And so obviously, it's incredibly well documented, the acceleration we've seen of the world in everything digital, the acceleration of digital transformation. And obviously, it's fair to say there was a time in which it was important to keep making sure you're evolving. Is absolutely mission critical now. It's gone from not a case of, do I need it to stay competitive, but I need it to stay alive, to survive. And so therefore, got to embrace change. Don't feel that what you know is obsolete, but you've got to basically break down and start thinking about what the hell is Martech? How do I tackle it? But don't forget that it's all connected to your business. Don't forget that it's connected to your strategy. So Martech is just one component that enables you to deliver what you're trying to achieve. So the same challenges you've always had are the same challenges you need to solve, but you need to think about the layers being that of technology or data. And I'll give you a sort of a practical example here. One thing I like to talk a lot about with our training programs is not Martech, forget Martech. Yeah, let's think about customer experience. So let's map the customer journey from beginning to end. What's the customer thinking? What are they feeling? What actions are they taking? That's one top layer. Yeah, there's nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with data. Then thinking about, okay, well, what channels exist today that we use and connect with the customer across that journey? Great. What channels could exist? And then afterwards, thinking about this as like layers on a cake, is then going, all right, and then what marketing technology exists to enable me to deliver a better customer experience? And so you see, if you approach it that way, you don't turn up going, my God, do I need Salesforce? Do I need Marketo? Do I need whatever? You're going from the top down and going, I've got a friction point here. I've got that my customer experiences, they're frustrated at the checkout because it's 18 clicks, or they can't pay with Google Pay, or they can't pay with Apple Pay. And so once you start identifying these problems, you have much stronger use cases for what the hell are you trying to solve, what you're trying to deliver on. When you have those documented and built out, you can then go out and start saying, okay, well, what technologies exist in the market that solve this problem? So you don't need to know 8,000 logos. You don't need to know all the entire suite of options. You just need to look at what is going to help solve that problem.
Yep, and absolutely agree with all the things that you said. And actually, one thing that I always say to my clients is that because I have a lot of clients that are absolutely obsessed with technology, but just with technology, and they have been implementing like a super different stack of different tools in the latest years. But I always say is one thing: think about the use cases and think about the business. You are nothing without a use case. You can implement a DMP, you can implement a digital analytics tool, you can implement a CDP or whatever, but if you don't have the use cases, you won't connect with the business and you won't get the revenues back. Because some of the clients from different industries are really struggling nowadays to make profitable, to make all the licenses that they are actually paying in terms of technology. They are struggling to make them profitable because they didn't thought about the specific use cases. They didn't thought about personalization. They didn't thought about upselling or specific cross-selling use cases, or maybe how to manage the audiences and how to do like the business part. They only thought about technology, and I think that only thinking about technology won't get the revenues back. So it's
absolutely right, completely right. Yeah, and I can definitely echo your points there. It's easy to end up in a scenario. It shouldn't be easy, but it is an easy scenario to go, I have no idea what this was trying to solve, therefore I can't say if it's a success or failure. So all I can say is I spent X amount of money on this tool. So if you haven't worked out what is it supposed to achieve, then how can you say if it was successful or not? And your points there, yeah, exactly right, is it doesn't matter what technology, the same is true. If you don't have business use cases clearly defined and understanding what the before and after should look like, what you have is a cost for a tool that that you can't measure.
And that will increase your CPAs, your CPL, and your costs in general for all the acquisition stage. So
absolutely.
Yep. No, I think that we mentioned another thing that I think it's really relevant, which is about personalization. So I think this is a hot topic as well since a lot of time, and I think that every marketer, every client from every industry wants to do personalization. But what is the role of marketing technology, of Martech and Adtech in that whole personalization thing?
Absolutely. It's like you say, I think each year or two we have a word or two that marketers obsess about, right? The period when there's a buzzword frenzy around certain words. I'd say we're in the personalization year. But yeah, I mean, look, it's super critical. More than ever, customers' expectations are that we should understand who they are and deliver the right message at the right time. And that's completely and utterly possible. I think there's obviously a whole host of different tools that can enable that. I think it's, before you get to tool level, it's understanding what data sets you have. So auditing from a top down, what are the data sources that exist? And what could those data sources tell us? And when we know that, what would we do differently? And so looking about not what technology do I need, but rather what data sources exist at the moment today across my entire ecosystem, every touch point. It could be transactional data, could be behavioral, demographic, firmographic. There's a whole host of different data sets that can come together to tell us more about our customers, to give us greater context. Having all of those clearly understood is a starting point. Once you have those, it's then asking what's possible, what's the art of the possible. If I have this data, how might I personalize? And that's when you start going, well, what toolsets are going to enable me to deliver rich, personalized experiences? I think there's everything from the right name through to personalization of creative based by individual, based by location. I think the key thing with personalization is start small. Don't try and solve it all in a day. Do make sure you really understand every single bit of data you have, and additionally, what other data sets exist that you can buy that can basically enrich your access and reach. And then it's about carefully architecting not just personalization on an individual silo channel by channel perspective, but holistically. So not in a world of multi-channel personalization, but omni-channel. So if I'm sending you stuff and I send you an email, and then a salesperson in my team, someone might call you and try and sell a course, they might send you an email, you might go to our website. We want that to be a contextualized, connected, personalized experience across all different touch points.
Yeah, and actually this is getting more and more difficult, since we have we are facing like a hyper connected environment. I mean, our users are connected through not only with their mobile phones on their desktop devices, but with wearables, with all the intelligent homes and things, and all the IoT devices. So it's increasingly difficult for brands and for advertisers to deliver that seamless experience. And I think that marketing technology will help definitely to try to orchestrate all that complex environment of channels, digital assets, tools, and so on. And I think that the challenge is, as you said, is to take into account all the data sets that you have, and start little by little, start connecting dots, and start building all the what we call the connected architecture. Because as I was saying before, a lot of the clients I've been working with implemented a lot of tools, but they didn't connect the tools between themselves. So they could have a lot of data on the, user engagement through the website, through the landing page or whatever. They could have a lot of data on the advertising, on the paid media side with the ad server. They could have a lot of data on the CRM. But if all that data points are not connected, they won't get they won't unlock the value of that data.
Yeah, and I think it's very common, right? It's some will have an incredibly powerful stack, but really it's probably not a stack. It's probably more of a collection of tools that are not integrated. In fact, it's probably the biggest challenge I hear is interconnecting your stack, both the plumbing, but also the ability to really architect and deliver that amazing experience. There's no end of possibilities. There's no end of technology that makes it possible, but there's a big people part, right? There's a big thinking part.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier around the importance of the core fundamentals of marketing. I think also that part of that thinking is also about, it's not just connect my stack, be able to personalize. It's then going, all right, well, what creatives are we going to test? What's amazing messaging? It's still, are you deliberating and spending the right amount of time to deliver amazing marketing that engages people, or are you overtly focused on trying to find a technology solution? And so that balancing act between the right message, the right time, is both technology, it's both people thinking, planning, and then actually making sure that you're also delivering amazing creative and amazing copy and messaging.
Yep. And actually, you mentioned that for sure, a lot of areas inside companies need to converge somehow, because now we face a lot of silos and we face a lot of areas of the different marketing departments in the companies that are implementing different tools and different stacks by their sides. But I think that in that new role of the CMO, of the digital marketing director, his or her responsibility will be to, let's say, orchestrate all the technology and all the let's say the business goals of every area in the company, so they can start working and the customer journey in an end-to-end approach. I mean, covering from the first contact from the brand and with the brand and the user until the user is a client and so on. So it's really important in that role of the CMO, in that new role of the CMO, that the people is able to connect inside the company, and so the tools can connect as well.
Absolutely, yeah, I really agree with that. I think it's again, like if we go through all the things where things fall down, where we've got a bunch of great tools, but we're not really getting the full utilization. It's, do we have the capabilities in the team? If we do have the capabilities, do we have the collaboration? And so are people playing nicely together? There's often a challenge between what is marketing, what's technology, but also just interdepartmental. You know, is it a centralized versus decentralized? Has somebody gone and taken out a license over there for a piece of technology we already have over here? And I think there's then, in terms of, there isn't a sort of a standardized solution for everyone, yeah? And so I don't want to come across as like, here's the answer, everyone should go and do this. But increasingly, one thing I have been seeing is creating centers of excellence for Martech, and actually saying, look, there's a core set of capabilities here that, one, there's a lack of skills in the market, and there's a level of specialism we need. And where we know that increasingly people are spending more and more on Martech and technology, I think Gartner's latest is 26 or 29% of marketing budgets. People are going, look, we need to centralize some of this thinking, some of this process, some of this procurement as well. I'm not suggesting that's the only way. There's certainly lots of smart decentralized models as well, but just I've been seeing increasingly at enterprise level more of a move towards creating centralized Martech hubs of excellence. And then alongside that, I think the other part is, there is a part of how do you just bring people together? And I think sometimes it's clearly communicating the bits we've talked about around, don't see data and technology as a threat. It's not in place of, it's to enrich and support what you do already. And I think that change management piece is an important message. At the same time, anybody who doesn't believe that data and technology and digitalization is important, obviously is going to have to adapt somewhat quickly. But I don't think there's a case of that. I think it's just about balancing acts and understanding that, you know, there's a whole suite of different marketing capabilities and technology capabilities that we need to bring together across the team.
Yep. And actually you talk about a really important point for us, which is how is the governance of Motec. I mean, it's a really complex thing because on the one hand, you will have all your internal stakeholders in the company, and on the other hand, you will have all the external stakeholders. So all your providers, all the your media agencies, your creative agencies, your consulting firms, and the rest of the tech partners in the ecosystem. So for sure, you will need somehow a governance model. Not only it's not enough with let's say connecting the dots in terms of technology, but connecting around the governance of everything. I mean, if you want to operate the whole customer journey from start to finish, you will have to consider planning a governance model that can support all that activities.
Absolutely, yeah. Governance is critical. It's less sexy, but it's super important.
Yeah. Now, and actually moving to a little bit more tech side. So we talk about connecting the tools. Okay. It's easy to say, but sometimes for all the advertisers and our clients are struggling a lot with connecting different technologies, because they could have like a different pieces of technologies. One's coming from Adobe, from Salesforce, from Google, from Oracle, from whatever tech provider, and sometimes they have full stacks, but when they have full stacks, they are also struggling with connection between tools. So what is my view here? My view here is that the people sometimes is forgetting that you can have different technologies, but you can always have like a unique data collection layer. So for me, it's important to have like three pieces in a marketing technology architecture. One piece is the data collection layer, which is basically a layer that can consolidate all the data coming from the different data sources. So you will have data coming from all your advertising activities in paid media and in now media. You'll have all the data coming from the navigation and the interactions from the users in your website, or your landing pages, your app, your wearable, your app for a smart TV or whatever device you want to. And for sure, you will have data coming from the CRM. You can have third-party data. You can have zero-party data, which is also a really interesting topic. But you will need to put, like, first of all, you will need to put a data collection layer that helps you to standardize the data and help you as well to manage all the content and all the privacy, which is a topic that we are going to cover a little bit later. So basically, I can imagine like the perfect architecture with a first data collection layer. After that, a data management layer where you can have like a lot of popular tools like DMP, Cdp, and whatever, and a data lake and so on. And for sure, you will need like a common data activation layer. So if you have all that three layers, you will be able first to consolidate the data, second to model the data with algorithms or with whatever, to build your audiences, and after that to go to your digital marketing channels in a, let's say, in an orchestrated way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
what will be your perfect architecture?
Yeah, I think that's a smart approach. And yeah, just I kind of think in grids. I think in grids and layers, it's helpful for me. So I understand, yeah, your framing there. It makes a lot of sense. I think there's a few different ways to model your marketing stack. I would, like you've described, I would start with the data part. I would start that as kind of the foundational system of record, the core part, where if we house and centralize and organize all of our data first, it's going to set us up right for what comes next. Because the reality is, if we don't have that foundational layer in place, when we come to activation, when we come to audience segmentation, we're going to be limited. We're not going to be able to do anywhere near the level of maturity in our marketing that we would like. So I like the idea of thinking that way in terms of the data management, data collection, organization, core foundational layer. When it then comes to, yeah, kind of, I would describe the next part then as thinking about this as a kind of architecting both audiences and journeys, and then your activation layer or sort of layer of engagement, if you like. I like that. I think there's probably there's a few different others you can have. You could have the layer after that being your analytics and attribution, where you're constantly learning, building, and improving, right from I want to optimize my channel performance to I need to drive my ROAS or my CPL, and feeding that back around, I think, is the interesting part as well. So from the core of what data you collect to the audience you select to the message you send, that continuous optimization, I think, is what's key. Depending where you are in your journey and how mature you are in your Martech, some of the most progressive organizations are very well set in that they're not completely removing humans from this part, but they are starting to inject the artificial intelligence part to that decisioning, to that optimization. Especially, I've seen some really interesting use cases. In fact, saw an interesting one some time ago now, but The Economist, one of the things they were doing with their paid media activation was integrating conversions with paid media spends, and in terms of optimizing audience selection in Facebook versus audience suppressions as well, which was an interesting one, is looking not just at who's the optimum audience to select, but who should I be suppressing, who doesn't convert, and where is their wastage. And so I think there's quite a few different use cases as you get kind of that core framework in place to go, right, I've collected, I've got intelligence in how I communicate, but I want to go further, I want to go smarter. And you can start to get into kind of sort of real micro smart intelligent audiences, which are intent-based, propensity to buy. And you can start sort of creating audience and personalization that we mentioned earlier to a level that a human couldn't. Now, I'm careful to say that I'm not of the view that AI is the answer to everything. You still need to be smart. You still need to stay close to it. And there's still some things that a human will think of, that are important to make sure you don't sort of remove from the process.
It makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned a really interesting topic, which is around attribution. And I think we can do like a whole webinar, we can spend a whole webinar just talking about attribution. But one thing that is important, and I refer back to the data collection layer. A lot of advertisers run their attribution models just with the ad server data. So they can only take into account let's say the advertising impacts, the impressions and the clicks that they are generating for every user. But they are losing a lot of information in that way. They are losing all the information coming from the navigation, the interactions on the website, and a lot of critical variables that could be more on the, let's say, social demographic side. So basically, to run proper attribution model and to run almost every model, you need more than one data source. You cannot run attribution just with the ad server data. You cannot run next best action just with the website navigation data. So you will need for sure that data collection layer before start applying any intelligence if you want your models to be effective. Because sometimes we speak with a lot of advertisers, we speak with a lot of our clients, and they say that their models are not good enough. And maybe it's not a problem of the AI or of the algorithm that you have implemented, but the problem comes directly from the data sources. So if you are just retrieving the data from one single source, if you are not, let's say, collecting the data with that unique layer, you won't have like a proper model working as the way you want to work.
Great point. Yeah, it really is. And I think attribution is the holy grail, right? It's for a year and a day we've all been trying to solve it. I think it's fair to say there's potentially, it's not easier, but there's more solutions now available to help. At the same time, more data than ever, more channels than ever, more complicated user journeys than ever. But yeah, absolutely right. If you don't collect it all and fully connect it with all the other touch points and all the other data points, you're really only seeing a fraction of the engagement and the journey. And I think it also then plays out that you can misassume the impact. You can overweight, but you can also underweight. And actually, even back on your point around governance, I think there's also an important part here around your tagging and your setup. Have you even got some of those foundational bits in place that when you're sucking that data into your collection layer, that you're then able to make something meaningful from the results? But look, we all know the reality is it's not one channel done and dusted, is it? It's not the final touch point that matters. There's a whole rich engagement that happens across multiple different screens, different times of day, different channels. And so if you don't have all of those data points collected, you're not going to be able to really understand what is or isn't performing for you.
Yeah. And actually connecting that data point is getting more and more difficult. So now we go for a really hot topic, which is basically what's happening in the industry. I mean, what's happening with all that privacy regulation that came some years ago, what's happening with that drastic shift around cookies, around third-party cookies, because one thing that is important around the cookieless thing is that a lot of people think that cookies are going to disappear. And I think that we need to clarify that the thing that is going to be limited is third-party cookies, not first-party ones. So I think that's a really good point. And what are your thoughts on that shift, Carlos?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'm really pleased you started with that, actually, because I hear it a lot. Yeah, it's not a cookieless world. It's a reduction or replacement is probably a better word, right? Replacement of the third-party cookie. What's happening? What am I seeing? Everyone needs to focus more heavily on first-party data. Connected with that is there's an awareness that brand trust is very, very important, and it's acutely connected to data management. Obviously, there's lots of cases. Facebook's a good example that have been documented around sort of data privacy and trust, and consumers expect something different, and so marketers need to adapt to that. Legislation is one thing, but there's also an expectation from your customers. So alongside this, and alongside some of the other challenges that we've already talked about, the mass of more and more data, the need to connect it around kind of sort of the key trends or some of the hottest trends in Martech that I'm seeing is the growth and explosion of customer data platforms. And there's a few reasons for that. One is we've got loads of data. We want to connect it. We want to be smart with our audiences. We want to make sure that we can do this in a more nimble, agile way. We want to do this as marketers. We don't just want to rely on our technology teams to do this. And coupled with that, a bit around legislation, things like the introduction of GDPR, like some time ago now, and also now with the replacement of the third-party cookie, people need to move from anonymous users to first-party. And so CDPs are going to be more important than they've been already. I would go as far as saying a CDP will be as common as a CRM. So we don't need to get into the exact details and differences, but a CDP can do so much for you, can really, your point around that layer, that data collection layer, that's one of the core use cases that CDPs help focus and solve. So I think what we're going to see is even more growth in that sector, more people introducing a CDP at the heart of their marketing stack to make sure, one, it's connected with their need to go towards driving first-party data, but then when they have that first-party data, what do? How do they deliver better experiences, better journeys, better connected channel activity?
Yep, and for sure that CDP should be connected with that, let's say, content management layer, because as you said, I think that users are more and more conscious about the companies retrieve their data. So now they expect something in exchange. And I think that we have really good examples, for example, on Amazon, on the Amazon side, which is building, like, for example, a virtual tourism platforms, so they can give back an experience for the users. They can control like restaurant guides and so on. So Amazon will be obtaining all the data about their user, their interest and so on, but they are giving back a service. They are giving back that virtual tourism service and so on. So users expect something in exchange for retrieving their data and for giving their data to companies, and they expect better experiences for sure. If you are collecting a lot of data from the users, but you are not giving anything back, for sure users will reject the consent. So let's not be scared as marketers about content management and about the death of the third-party cookies, because I think that this is going to let us to, let's say, invest much more on the experience and on the service and all the great things that we can deliver to our users. And for sure, the CDP here will play a key role because it will be our master layer, our master data collection layer for sure, where we can integrate all the data sources, and our data activation layer as well. So we can connect the CDP with the data lake environment, so we can run all the advanced models that we were mentioning before. We can connect the CDP with all our activation channels, so we can activate the strategies on the paid media, on our media, on personalized experiences on our websites, and so on. But yeah, now that you mentioned the CDP, because a lot of companies implemented DMPs and a lot of CMOs are a little bit worried. So the CDP it's as short in terms of lifetime as the DMP. So what are your thoughts on that? What are the main difference between a DMP, a CDP, and how are you tackling this?
Sure. Just right. I think your point. There were two words used. One was value exchange. Value exchange is it, right? It's so right. It's people have got to think more carefully about what they're asking for and why they're asking it, what they can give back to incentivize people. And that does take us through to the conversation around CDPs and DMPs a bit, which is DMPs are really have different use cases, which predominantly the use case for a DMP is for advertising. And it takes anonymous data. It focuses on third-party data, whereas a CDP is focused on first-party data. What that means is a CDP can be used for a different set of marketing use cases versus advertising use cases. And so here's some of the key things that I see and hear around why people need a CDP and where they get most value. It is around providing and creating a single customer view. So again, if we go through the different suite of the marketing stack, a CRM doesn't do that yet, a DMP doesn't do that. There's a whole marketing automation platform doesn't do that. If you want one centralized 360 view of your customer, CDP is focused on doing that. Pull every data source, put it in one place, stitch together and understand who that individual is. That's one key thing. Beyond that is then when you've connected that audience, you want to provide smart, intelligent audience segmentation. Again, there is a level of segmentation possible in a marketing automation platform or a CRM or even a DMP, but not to the same rich level. And so if you've got smarter audiences, you could be more personalized, you can apply smarter, intelligent decisioning about how you communicate to those people and how you then connect it to the activation that you were talking about earlier. A DMP doesn't do those things. And so interestingly, there are some DMPs that are reshuffling their words and becoming CDPs. That's not to say that DMPs don't still have a place, but certainly a CDP provides an incredible amount of value, and now more than ever is becoming super important. I think the part the CDP also then does is around the activation layer you talked about. It enables, right? So if you've got that data and you've got that connected user in one place, you then want to provide a really smart digital experience. So it could be connected to your DXP to really personalize the online experience or your app or your email activity or your social, whatever it might be that comes afterwards. But your entire activation layer can be redefined by the layers that come underneath it and what you're able to do with that afterwards.
Yeah, and I think that the good point here is that you will be collecting and you will be focusing, as you said, on the first party data. So you won't have to be worried at all with all the cookieless thing that is happening, because actually you will be collecting the data from your digital asset, from your own digital asset. And actually, if you want to identify some behavior from your prospect, you could start running relevant experiences from the user, like that virtual tourism platform that Amazon created. A lot of banks are creating different experiences. So for example, people can check what is the value of their housing. So the bank is getting the data in exchange and people are getting somehow a reward. So yeah, I think that marketers shouldn't worry so much about the cookieless thing if they focus on generating rich and relevant first party data and they focus on giving a service. What are your views here on all the cookieless thing, Carlos?
Yeah, I think you described it right. It's not something to be scared of. It's something to embrace. So there's an opportunity here, and beyond that, I mean, look, the game's up. It's changed. You've got to adapt. There isn't a choice. That's the thing about legislation. But also, there's an opportunity, and I think some of the examples you gave are brilliant. It's incentivize, give people real reasons to give you their first party data, and then use it in a smart way. It's an opportunity. It's not a threat. It's an opportunity. And if you get it right and you move quickly and you embrace this, you have an opportunity to move quicker than your competition and actually be in a position that you can provide a richer experience that delivers you ultimately a happier customer and a more engaged one.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think it's a really, really good point. I think that there are a lot of alternatives or a lot of companies are building or trying to build some alternatives to continue doing advertising in the same way they used to do, but without cookies. But I think that we need to think in a different way, as you said. I mean, we as a marketers, I think that we have the responsibility to do the things in a different way, collecting the first party data with a really, really transparent approach, because here I think that transparency for the user is the key. And I think we shouldn't focus on try to do the same things that we were doing in the same way, but without cookies. So I'm not really into all the initiatives that are emerging in the market, or for example the ones coming from Google with the Flock and so on. I think that where advertisers need to focus is, as you said, in generating that first party data. If they can, let's say, if they are able to get some attributes with all that cohort system created by Google, or if they can somehow enrich their first party data with other data sources without the need of cookies, that's good. But I think that my message for every advertiser will be, please focus on your first party data, focus on experience, and let's try to do like a really, really customer centric strategy in that way.
Definitely, I think that's sound advice.
Basically, please, for our audience, if you want to add any questions, you can use the Q&A button that is located down the screen, so we can answer. Just one more thing, Carlos, what I want to talk with you is about the use cases. So you mentioned a lot the CDP. Can you put a couple of examples on use cases around the CDP that will be relevant for advertisers and for marketers?
Yeah. I think the personalization one would be an interesting one. So if we reverse engineer from the want to deliver a personalized experience across our entire mix of channels, all of that starts with our data layer and how we collected all the data in one place. Do we have it connected in a way that we can then provide a smart decisioning model that says, right, we know your previous transactional data, we know the last conversation you had with somebody in the sales team, we know the NPS score you've given us based on your renewal, we know that you came to our website. Once you connect all of that into a smart, intelligent place, you completely redefine and create dynamic one-to-one communications. So I think a really good opportunity is around changing how you market altogether, with personalization at the heart of it, but personalization across any channel whatsoever.
It's cool. Thank you, Carlos. We have a question here from the audience, and the question is, what Motec trends are we seeing and why? I suppose that apart from all the cookieless thing and all the content management, what would you say around trends on Motec? How is it evolving?
Yep, I'm seeing the needs. I don't want to say redefine and recreate, but your entire marketing stack being completely audited and thinking again. So it's fair to say the world's changed a lot. It's fair to say that what's now is different to what was probably when you first defined your marketing stack. So a big audit on what you currently have in place, and is it now fit and modeled in a way that fits for customer expectations is a big one. CDPs I've mentioned, personalization, and also thinking about the customer experience and really meaning it. I say that because customer experience as a buzzword has been around for some time, but I think expectation levels have really elevated now because there's so much more data online, because there's so much online shopping, because there's so much of a digital footprint. We as customers now have better experiences and we want them all the time. We don't just want them when we shop with, say, Amazon. We want them in any interaction. And so a much bigger focus on customer experience. One other one as well is also the opportunities that exist for kind of access management or journey orchestration type tools. So back on that conversation of kind of driving first party data, there's been kind of growth in the tools that help you sort of gate more content or gate parts of your website or parts of the experience. So kind of the tools that enable you to put in front of an individual, look, can you please share some information with me before I give you this amazing experience or this offer of some sort?
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot for the insight, because I think that are really interesting. I agree a lot. And just to do a wrap up, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about CDPs, we talk about cookieless, we talk about a lot of trends. But I think that the key message for me was, as we said before, focus on first party data, start little by little, don't do it more complex than it is. Don't be scared of technology, because as we said, for all that traditional marketers that are listening to us now, don't be afraid of technology, because the important thing around Martech is the use case and is the business value that you can add with that. And I think it's been a really interesting session. Carlos, thanks a lot for your time. It's been a pleasure for me and for Globant to have you here. For all of our attendees, the session has been recorded and we will send it back to you. And we hope you had a really good time with us. For us, it's been a pleasure. And I don't know, Carlos, if by your side, want to say a couple of words here?
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, super interesting. Really great to chat with you. And yeah, agreed on all the bits you sort of wrapped up there. I think the final one would be, I think the marketing stack architecture you talked about, I think taking that context and that framework and that thinking and just how powerful it can be when you are focused on first party data. So suddenly your bottom layer there, that data collection layer, should be growing exponentially because you're feeding it with amazing data, which then ripples all the way up and changes your activation activity altogether. But yeah, been a pleasure to chat. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank to all the global marketing team for having us today here. And thank you of course to our attendees, and hope we see you soon. Thank you, Carlos. Bye.